Good afternoon. You're still at the Politico's Competitive Europe Summit. We didn't export you to another dimension in those couple of minutes. I'm Peter Haak. I'm a senior tech reporter at Politico. And if you're part of the EU tech policy bubble like I am, you hear the word tech sovereignty almost every day. The Commission even has an EVP or an executive vice president for that. Tech sovereignty is also urgently needed because Europe is at the moment heavily reliant on US technology. US cloud providers provide or serve 2/3 of the European market, and Europeans are embracing ChatGPT much faster than they do with Mistral's Le Chat. I hate to say that to the previous speaker. We're going to speak about tech sovereignty with Francesca Bria, who is an honorary professor at UCL and one of the drivers behind the Eurostack, the idea to come up with a European tech infrastructure. Francesca is regrettably joining us online. I hope she's already connected.
Hi.
There she is.
Hello.
Hi, Francesca. Nice to have you, even online. Let's maybe kick us off by giving us an idea of how grim the picture is, or how big the problem is, and how hard Europe should go in this drive towards tech sovereignty.
Yes, first of all, let me say that I think technological sovereignty is to be understood as we've heard also in all your summit, as industrial competitiveness, as national security, and as the possibility to defend democracy. I think this is the starting point to discuss an issue that, yes, is everywhere, and we see a lot of sovereignty washing. So I think we have to be very clear that this is an absolute necessity for Europe. If we look at the numbers, the dependency numbers, as you mentioned in your introduction, I think the situation is stark. So Europe is relying 80% of any digital technology is imported. We have 90% of our cloud data that is processed by non-European providers under US law. And we control less than 4% of global AI training capacity. The chips that we use in every industrial sectors are made in Asia, in Taiwan and South Korea, Taiwan being a very vulnerable geopolitical area. And so this is really, in my view, not a trade deficit. It is a sovereignty deficit in a moment where we see a new techno-political order, where we see export controls, technology bans, supply chains that are weaponized, and even trade deals that are weaponized. So when we hear the president of the US saying that our regulators that need to enforce digital laws in Europe could face a ban or sanction, I think we understand the very core of what sovereignty means. Because if you are relying on critical infrastructures that are built elsewhere, that are built according to laws that we haven't written, or in line with values and regulation that are not our own, in this particular moment, I think we face a big threat. So it's almost like Europe is between two empires, two techno empires, the US and China, but we have no seat at the table where our future is written. And I think it's very clear that when we're talking about semiconductors or intelligence that run our society and our industry, this is now rationed to Europe in a game that we cannot control. So just to finish, I think the democracy that doesn't control its critical infrastructure is a democracy at risk.
But the question then is, of course, like, how deep do we have to go? Because, for example, if we look at the current European supercomputers, they are EU funded, so they seem to be very European. But then again, they also run still on US made or US designed AI chips, for example. And of course, that's not going to change anytime soon, because AI chips, Europe has no production capacity. How do we have to go there in that drive towards tech sovereignty?
I think the important thing is to make the plan feasible and to understand that when we're talking about the Eurostack, we're talking about an industrial plan for Europe. So obviously you will have some ambitions which are longer term, and we need to say that the next generation of critical technologies will be European. But obviously, at the same time, we're going to work within the given environment, having all these dependencies and dependencies and reliance on foreign technology. We're going to be able to create partnerships where Europe can acquire the knowledge and the capabilities needed in order to lead in the future. I think there are very concrete steps in this direction that are basically, I think if you want to say where to start, and we have been very strongly advocating, for example, for European procurement or strategic procurement with Buy European. This means that we want to help the European technologies we have now available to scale in the market. So we want to help adoption and diffusion of European technologies, starting from a sovereign cloud, going to European AI, a digital ID system that's European, the digital euro, being able to control critical data. And this is a starting point that we can do right now. Then there is a question of where do we move next, and I think that's why the geopolitical situation matters, because as we're seeing with AI, the supply chain is becoming interconnected but weaponized, but also the infrastructure is changing.
Yeah. Let's go a bit into what you already mentioned about this sovereignty washing. The last year, we've seen many US companies coming to Europe and saying like, okay, fear not, dear Europeans, we will give you sovereign cloud, sovereign AI solutions. Even last week, there was this deal between SAP, a German company, and OpenAI to bring sovereign AI to Germany. Are we being tricked by these companies? Is this really a genuine solution to get to more European tech sovereignty?
I think we can see that as a victory. If everyone is talking about sovereignty, it means that sovereignty is important, and it also means there is political momentum and that the Eurostack or the digital sovereignty movement is working. At the same time, we have to be careful about not falling into the easy trap of the sovereignty washing, because obviously a sovereign European cloud provided by Google or sovereign AI provided by NVIDIA or a sovereign military provided by Palantir are not what we mean by creating capabilities, creating knowledge here in Europe, and also being able to be in line with our legislation and within our jurisdiction, which means being able to implement a regulation better, so that European technology won't just be used or acquired because it's European, but because it's better, because it protects our data and our privacy better, also because it's aligned with our climate commitment, because the AI infrastructure consumes far too much water and too much energy, so we need to be able to rationalize the energy consumption and do that with renewable energy aligned with European climate commitment.
Yeah. But if
so
as
you see, it's not a question of European because it's European. It's a question of European because this is better to serve the needs of our industry and citizens.
But if we then, for example, look at the deal between SAP and OpenAI, would you say that SAP has fallen into that trap of sovereignty washing?
I think it's normal for companies and industries to make decisions on the short term that maximize their revenue. I think, though, this is not a moment where we can risk our sovereignty and our national security without a plan. So things have to move in parallel. And if we are, for example, investing 40 billion, as we have signed in the trade deal with the US, on buying NVIDIA chips, this means we have to double down on next generation European chips, probably based on RISC-V or open hardware. That's the same for AI. So if we are now obviously using all the models available in the market, we do that to gain knowledge, to acquire industrial capabilities, to develop next generation European AI. So this has to be the trajectory. The sovereignty is not, is a spectrum. We need to be able to have the choice and not to have one point of failure in a weaponized supply chain. This is very dangerous, not only for our industry, but again, I will say it again, for our national security.
The drive towards European tech sovereignty faces some key moments the next weeks and months. We have, in the mid-November, there is this big summit organized by France and Germany to get to this European tech sovereignty. Early in next year, the Commission also plans to come up with this cloud and AI development rulebook, which could see some elements that brings us to cloud sovereignty. What do you expect from these two moments, and when would you say that these two were a success?
I think the political momentum is there. I think just look, we started with the Eurostack initiative not even 1 year ago. Now we have over 200 companies that are backing the plan. This is in the coalition agreement in the new German government. The new digital ministry has the Eurostack and the Deutschlandstack in their plan. The French government, the Spanish government, the Netherlands is on board. And also in the European Parliament, the MEPs have presented their own initiative report on tech sovereignty. I think these are all good news. At the same time, the action should follow. So we expect, for example, to have a Buy European Act, as I said before, or be very serious about procuring strategic European technology to diffuse European alternatives in the market. President von der Leyen has talked about the big investment in the competitiveness fund. We have launched a scale-up fund, and I think possibly a European tech sovereign fund should enable more investment to go in this direction. And the French-German summit, I think, can be a very important point just to show the commitment. Because if there is commitment from the private side, then we need obviously the industrial leadership to follow. So I think this is really, as President von der Leyen has put it, Europe's independence moment. And this cannot happen without a strong focus on the critical digital infrastructures that are enabling everything to happen in the economy and in society.
Let's talk a bit about the next EU budget. You already mentioned it. Some of the Eurostack critics say that if you want to build out this Eurostack or this European tech infrastructure, it's going to be very expensive. You're going to duplicate everything, and it's a bit of a waste of money. It's not very efficient. What would your counter-argument be against that criticism?
I believe I follow what Mario Draghi has said in his report. We've been building on top of his analysis and his recommendation. So we have around 300 billion of European money that flies abroad. We have a lot of unutilized capital in pension funds and institutional investments that can be mobilized to enable the next generation of industrial champions to grow. So I think the resources in Europe, if we, of course, strategically enable both private investment and public investment to go together with the right regulation, is there. And I think it was said also before by the Mistral interview that it was done there. We also believe that the European stack is not about replicating, technology that is already available. It's gonna be building on open source, open standards, interoperability as an added value, and then build actual European capabilities where those are needed, starting from our industrial strength. Because this is an industrial plan for Europe. This is not just about technology. This is about strengthening our industrial ecosystem and make it more dynamic. So I think the money is there and should be mobilized for this very, very critical objective.
You say the money is there, but the talks about the EU budget, next EU budget, are happening right now. A lot of money will go into things like defense, etc. Don't you think that maybe this priority will take the backseat and that it won't happen in the next EU budget?
No, I don't think so. I see also there is, of course, a big space for dual-use technology when we're talking about defense. As we know, the modern defense uses all these critical capabilities that we need also in the civic economy, and we need to make sure, of course, this protects our citizens at the same time. So there is a big space to act there. But I also think that when we have seen that social media and in the future AI can be manipulated during elections, when we see that one single man can shut off internet in Ukraine in the battlefield because he controls the critical satellite low orbit that Europe needs to produce for itself. I think we understand when we see sabotage in undersea cable or GPS jamming, I think we understand how critical this conversation should be. It should not be in the back seat, as you said.
If we take it 5 years further, 2030, is there some kind of idea that you have that in terms of percentage or threshold when you would say, like, now we're no longer reliant on other continents or other regions?
First of all, I think we are saying that Buy European should enable us at least to mobilize the 2 trillion of procurement, 50% at least for European technology. I think, look, in the future, I want to see success stories. I don't want to only talk about percentage. I think I want to see adoption of European technologies, success stories in manufacturing, healthcare, biotech, defense. I think this has to be a moment where Europeans understand that we are able to innovate on our own terms. So this is what I believe being the Europe's independence moment.
That's maybe the key takeaway of this interview, innovate on our own terms. That's what European tech sovereignty should be about, according to Mrs. Bria. Thanks for being here, even virtually. I ask everyone in the venue to remain seated, because we will be back with you right away to talk about research and development, another key element of European competitiveness. Thanks.